Welcome to The Catch Up, a podcast from the Daily Catch where we take you inside the news. My name is Walter Mullin, and I'm the publisher of the Daily Catch.
And I'm Emily Sachar, the editor of the Daily Catch.
In our show, we discuss stories that have appeared in the Daily Catch. We give you insights into how we put the stories together, offer additional observations, and discuss where the stories may be heading as we move forward. Emily, I think it's time you and I catch up.
It is time, Walter.
I'm not a good test taker, but with IB, it's about the way you think about things, and there's not really a wrong answer, which actually helps individuals like that learn. It helped me learn better than the AP style of learning. I have done much better on my IBs than my AP because it helps with my learning style. I don't do well yes or no.
I think pretty infectious in terms of how kids were going to these presentations, talking to current seniors in my sophomore year, and just getting a better idea of what it was. If I can do this, and I'm going to have all my friends with me, or a chunk of my friends with me, it's always going to be easier. It's a little bit less stifling and claustrophobic to have a bigger community too, where it's not everyone's taking the same full IB classes, so you can still talk to kids that are maybe going through different things that you are, even if they are still full IB.
That was several of the students who were enrolled in the International Baccalaureate, or IB program at Red Hook High School, which is seeing a surge in popularity. The IB program really challenges well-worn tropes that many students want an easy and not a challenging path through school. IB is a demanding curriculum. Today, we are delighted to welcome back Claire Greenberger, whose portfolio of coverage areas for the Daily Catch includes education, farming, the environment, and now municipal government in the town of Clinton. Today, Claire is here to talk to us about the International Baccalaureate, or IB program in Red Hook. Welcome back, Claire.
Hi, Emily. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. So, Claire, I have to tell you and our listeners something that's going to inform some of my questions, and that is that I am a former school teacher, and I was very impressed when I was a teacher to see how many students actually like to be lifted up, because there is a bit of a well-worn trope, as I said in my intro, that students do not want that kind of lift up. And I'm eager for you to share with us what you know. We'll get to that in a minute. But let's first start with, what is IB? Tell us the history of this program, the point of it, and how does it differ from another pair of initials, AP?
Mm-hmm. So IB, which, as you mentioned, stands for International Baccalaureate, is an internationally recognized academic program that actually started back in the 1960s in Geneva. And originally, it was designed for students whose families moved around a lot, like diplomats or other international workers, so that their kids would have this rigorous sort of portable diploma that universities around the world would recognize. And Red Hook brought IB to the school in 2001, and at first it was really seen as kind of an elite or niche program for the school's highest achieving students. But that's changed pretty dramatically over the last few years. At its core, IB is less about memorization and test taking and more about teaching students how to think. So it really emphasizes critical thinking, writing, discussion, global perspectives, and making connections across disciplines. The full IB diploma, which is something that students decide either to opt into or not at the end of their sophomore year, is a pretty big commitment. For that, students take 6 IB courses across a variety of subjects: literature, math, science, social studies, foreign language, arts. And full diploma students also, over those 2 years, they write a 4,000-word research essay, they complete a long-term community service project, and they also take a class called Theory of Knowledge, which is basically a philosophy course about how we know what we know. So it's a big undertaking. And compared to AP, which you asked about, which stands for Advanced Placement, AP often centers on preparing for a single high-stakes exam, which happens at the end of the year. But IB is a bit more holistic. There are exams, yes, but there are also oral presentations, long essays, creative projects, and out-of-the-classroom reflective work that all count toward the diploma.
Okay, so some questions. So AP also, if I remember correctly, took a few of those in high school, was geared toward a specific subject area like calculus or biology, advanced biology, or advanced physics. Are the IB courses similarly very specific to subject area? Or are they more generic?
Yeah, there are specific subjects. So, for example, you can take IB Physics or IB French, just like you could take AP French. But there, for the full diploma, you're taking classes across a number of disciplines and also doing those additional projects, as I described.
Okay. And are the IB classes harder, would you say, than others, especially AP classes? And how do they compare to general ed curriculum courses?
I think the honest answer is that it depends on the student. IB is definitely challenging, but it's challenging in a different way. Like I heard from one student who said that she isn't a great test taker generally, and she actually found IB more manageable than AP. So also a lot of students told me that the emphasis on things like discussion and creativity and independent thinking actually makes the work feel more engaging, which might make doing the work feel easier, even if it's still highly demanding. So it's definitely a lot of work, but it's also just work that pulls students in differently. So I'd say if you're a student who likes writing and asking questions and making your own arguments, IB might feel like a better fit.
Okay. And Claire, what sorts of programs has Red Hook had around IB? You mentioned, I think you said 2001 was when it started. Give us a little bit of that trajectory over time.
Yeah, so there are a number of programs that fall under IB. The main one is the full IB diploma program, which I described, but students don't have to commit to the full diploma to participate in IB classes. They can also take individual courses. So they could sign up just for IB art or IB film or theater or IB psychology. There are a bunch of classes that fall under IB. So that gives them some flexibility in how deeply they want to engage with the program. One piece of the IB full diploma that I thought was interesting is the CAS program, which stands for Creativity, Activity, and Service. So for that, over the 2 years, the full diploma students, they keep an online journal where they document new experiences that they have both in and out of the classroom and kind of reflect on their personal growth, and they design this final community service project. For example, a group of full diploma students recently spent an afternoon rock climbing in Albany at a rock climbing gym. And they documented in their journal their anxieties before their trip, what they were nervous about rock climbing. And then afterwards, they reflected on their experience and what they had learned. So that just speaks to how IB emphasizes out of the classroom learning as well. And also in past years, to fill that requirement, students have just done a variety of community service projects. Like one student organized a suicide prevention walk, another organized an ASPCA fundraiser, an animal adoption event in Red Hook. And also very important to mention, all students, whether or not they pursue the full IB diploma, they take IB English in 11th and 12th grade. So everyone is exposed to IB through that 2-year English class.
So let's take a step back because I think we're jumping a little bit ahead of where our listeners may be. So when IB came to Red Hook in 2001, do we know what was offered in that first year?
Yeah, so when IB came, that full diploma was offered.
That full diploma. Okay. And then didn't something happen several years ago or in 2024 where the district moved from regular English to something with English for all or mandated English IB? Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, so as you just said, in 2024, Red Hook decided that all students, it would be mandatory for all 11th and 12th graders to take IB English. So there was no longer an option of taking either Regents level English or IB English. Everybody automatically was going to be in IB English for 11th and 12th grade. And the English department had been talking about that idea for a long time. And when they actually sat down and compared the existing 11th grade curriculum to IB English, they said that they realized that the expectations were already very similar, but IB adds some more flexibility. So things like creative assignments and reading works in translation from other languages. And teachers felt that those elements really help students build critical and analytical thinking skills that just benefit everyone, not just students on an advanced track. They have said that especially given just how complex and fast-changing the world students are entering is, they realize that these IB skills are actually more relevant than what's taught in a standard English class, and they wanted all students to have that exposure.
Interesting. And Claire, how has that been going, the mandatory English IB program?
By most accounts, it's been going really well. Teachers told me that there were some initial concerns early on from students worrying that it might be too hard for them, that class. But in practice, many of those students ended up doing really well. Failure rates in IB English are very comparable to what they were in Regents English a few years ago. So I know that this grading period, 8 students total failed across both IB English levels out of roughly 120 kids. So that said, there has been some pushback. One student I spoke with said he sees the value of offering IB for the school's academic reputation, but he doesn't think that it should be required for everyone. He said he worries especially about students who are struggling in school but are naturally more math inclined or math oriented, and feels that the English mandate could stretch those students thinner in the area that they're weakest in instead of letting them play to their strengths.
Interesting. Okay. So you've been mentioning, what have you been calling it? Full IB, the program that is a full IB diploma. What's the correct name for that?
Yeah, so that's the full IB diploma.
Great. So is Red Hook expanding that, or are they just seeing, well, tell us, are they seeing a surge? I think that's what we just reported a few days ago, right? So tell us what's happening there.
Yeah, so it's not that the program itself has changed. What's changing is participation. So more students are opting into the full diploma, and that growth has been pretty striking. In just 2 years, participation jumped from about 12% of juniors and seniors participating in the full diploma to more than a quarter participating in the full diploma. So it's basically double the amount of students participating. So it used to be under 20 students a year, and now in this year's 11th grade and 12th grade, there are 35 students in each class participating.
In each grade level. So 35 in each, in junior, 35 senior.
Yeah, yes.
That sounds really staggering, that kind of growth. And this is not an anomaly, Claire? Are they sure?
Well, it's been going on for 2 years now, and they haven't done the registration yet for next year. That happens at the end of this school year, so it'll happen in the spring. But signs point to that the trend will continue just because there are a lot of 10th graders that are opting into some more challenging English classes. So it seems like students are trying to challenge themselves and see if they're prepared for the full diploma.
Interesting. And if I remember correctly, you spoke to some students who talked to you a little bit about why they were motivated to take IB. Can you tell us a little more about what you heard from the students themselves?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that was interesting that came up from students is that they were saying that the culture around IB has just been pretty infectious. And that's because when more students are opting in, it makes others feel like it's attainable for them too. And that seems to be fueling some of the growth. And that makes sense because it's a lot easier to embark on something you think might be challenging or hard when you also have a big group of your friends doing it with you too.
Mm-hmm. And I would think also when you only have, 12 or 15 students, it could feel kind of claustrophobic because you're just taking so many courses with the same people.
Yeah, that's exactly what one student said to me. Like having more students that are involved in the program, it means that you're not doing, all of your classes with those same 12 kids, that there's some variety and mix up.
So, Claire, is it your sense that the district is kind of steering this demand, or is the district reacting to demand, or is it some combination?
So yeah, they're very much reacting to demand. Administrators told me that when they build schedules each year, they're adjusting class sections based on how many students sign up. So when they have more IB students, that will just result in them probably having to add some sections for certain classes that they have on offer.
And is this increased demand or participation in IB causing the district to add still more IB classes? I mean, opportunities or specific subject areas, or is that a static situation?
That's largely static, especially for the ones that are required. So for the required ones, they might have to add some sections, but as I mentioned earlier, they often adjust based on demand. So if nobody signs up for IB sports and exercise science class, they're not going to offer that.
Got it. Got it. You did talk a little bit about some of the benefits for kids of taking IB. I remember when I took AP calculus, I think I got credit in college and I didn't have to take certain math courses. Does IB work the same way?
In many cases, yes, and especially increasingly so from what I've heard. A lot of US colleges now offer credit for IB coursework. And regardless of that, it's just well recognized by colleges for its rigor. So it's a way for students to show colleges that they are challenging themselves and taking the hardest classes that their school has to offer. Students also told me that IB leaves them just feeling better prepared for college because they're used to managing long-term deadlines. A lot of the projects for IB take place over several months or even the whole school year. They've also learned to seek out their teachers directly to ask questions and discuss course content. And a lot of the projects require collaborating with peers. So those are all things and skills that college demands, but aren't always taught at the high school level. But in Red Hook, through the IB program, they are.
Great. And Claire, tell us a little bit about the cost implications of this, since it sounds like a specialized program that might need specialized training from teachers. Is that true? And if so, or even if not, what are the cost implications on the budget of this expansion of students taking IB for all?
Yeah, so what I've heard from administrators on that is that even though there's been growth in the program, it has not created an additional financial strain for the district because IB has a fixed operating cost of about $10,000 a year. And since they already had IB trained teachers at the school, they haven't had to train additional teachers or hire additional teachers in recent years to accommodate the growth.
That's great. That's great. It's wonderful to know that our teachers in the Red Hook district are so capable of teaching such complicated and advanced subjects. It's wonderful to know that. Let's talk a little bit about Rhinebeck. So Rhinebeck is a smaller district, is it not, Claire?
Yeah, it is smaller.
And does Rhinebeck have any IB opportunities? And if so, tell us about those. And if not, tell us why not.
Yeah, they don't. Interestingly, Rhinebeck administrators spoke very positively about IB philosophically. They said that they appreciate its emphasis on process and interdisciplinary thinking and the oral assessments. But they ultimately decided, after researching the program a few years back, that given the district's small size, they couldn't realistically run both IB and AP at the same time. And the faculty at Rhinebeck really valued the AP program. So the district has just decided to prioritize running that.
Mhm. Fantastic. What else should our listeners know about IB that I didn't ask you, but that you know about?
Yeah, I mean, I really just loved hearing from students about their experiences with IB. They all spoke really positively about IB, and I think it's interesting. They've said that it's possibly had more of an impact, not just on what they know, but like who they are as people and as learners. One student was telling me how he really feels like IB has taught him just to be a learner out in the world, not just in the classroom, which Emily, I'm sure you can attest from your teaching days. That's kind of music to any teacher's ears. So he said now, like if he comes across a word or a concept he doesn't know, he's much more likely to just go look it up on his own without being prompted because that's what the work requires. And he also talked about how IB deepened interests he's already had. So he said he's always loved geography and he told me that he just now spends a ridiculous amount of time researching it on his own just because he's genuinely interested. So for him, IB showed him that he can handle challenging work and that he can actually make it enjoyable by connecting it to things he cares about.
So interesting. I don't know if this is relevant, but we talk about AI and the fears that teachers have of kids, I don't know if cheating's the right word, but using AI to do their work. And then on the other hand, we have this pendulum swing of kids, sometimes not even the most traditionally ambitious students, wanting to enroll in IB. See anything there you can remark upon?
Yeah, something that's really interesting that I heard from Principal Kyle Roddy when I was talking to him about AI. He said that AI has kind of forced schools to start teaching to skills and things that AI will just never be able to replace. So things like more emotional things like care and empathy. And I think it's interesting that IB emphasizes those skills as well. So even through like the rock climbing and the keeping of that personal journal and tracking personal growth, IB students are really asked to be out in the world and thinking in ways that AI can never really replace and learning skills that AI can never really replace.
So are you saying that students are, in a sense, voting with their feet and saying, well, maybe we want to use AI, but we also really want these IB skills?
That could be.
Kind of an interesting connection. Yeah, I just found when I was teaching that if I could light a fire with a student, including might be the students in my quote unquote lower level classes, I could really hook them. And it was always fun to see that you could turn on a student who was traditionally pigeonholed as being unexcited. So if I could bring in a new way of teaching a math topic instead of relying on a traditional textbook approach, sometimes I could really excite a kid. And it sounds like IB is having that same impact on certain children unexpectedly.
Definitely. And I think that making IB mandatory for all 11th and 12th graders was kind of a vote of confidence in students. Teachers were saying to them, you are capable of this high level work. That's why we're making it mandatory. So I think they think that might have been sort of inspiring for them.
Right. Well, thank you once again, Claire, for being on our show to talk about another alphabet soup. You've got WWTP for wastewater treatment plant. You've got AP, you've got IB, you've got all kinds of stuff up your sleeve. So thank you. Thank you yet again.
The education world is full of acronyms.
Indeed. Well, have a wonderful holiday, Claire.
You too. Happy holidays.
Yeah.
That was very interesting to hear about that program at Red Hook High School. Claire always comes back with the story.
She sure does. She's an ace.
So, Emily, before we wrap up the show, you're confused about something. I'm confused about something. And I have to imagine our listeners might also be confused about something. The confusion is around what is happening in the village of Rhinebeck for the holidays. Shall we try and clear up for our listeners?
Yes, I'm no longer confused, Walter, as of about 25 seconds ago. So I'm going to sum it all up for everybody. Okay, so the question was, is there going to be a Christmas tree or a holiday tree? Is there going to be a menorah? And if so, where in the village of Rhinebeck? We also had heard earlier this year there was going to be no Sinterklaas. So here is the official update as of midnight Friday morning. So in the village of Rhinebeck, in part because Town Hall is in the village, located in the village, we have 2 holiday trees now and 2 menorahs. So we have a holiday tree brought to us by the village. We have a holiday menorah brought to us by the Rhinebeck Jewish Center. Those are sitting on I call it the village green, but it's really the village parking lot and the so-called Doughboy Park. Okay. Now, in addition, as of a few days ago, and this is interesting, a Jewish man and his wife donated a holiday tree to be in front of Town Hall. And also, there is a menorah now in front of Town Hall, according to the supervisor, Elizabeth Spinzia. And what's interesting about that about that tree, is it was donated by a Jewish family. So that's really interesting. They were so upset after reading in the Daily Catch about the possible lack of a holiday tree that they decided they would take it upon themselves. In addition, I believe late or middle of last week, we heard that Jean Fleming's operation, she's the founder and maestra of Sinterklaas, is going to have a special program this Saturday running from 2 to 4 p.m. in the parking lot at Foster's. And this program, we are told by Jean directly, is going to run several times over the course of the 2-hour period. I believe she said 2 or 3 times. And then at the end, there will be like a group sing. And this will be free of charge. It will occur, as I said, in the parking lot if weather is permitting. So if it's raining, and if it's raining hard, it is not happening and there is no rain date. Now, we also should note that Foster's does have its own Christmas tree too. So Scrooge has left the village of Rhinebeck, and what has emerged has been quite a pageant of opportunities. I do want to mention, Walter, I'm sure you're thinking this. Well, now what about Red Hook? Red Hook had the Holiday of Lights last Saturday, and a cascade of dozens and dozens of vehicles rode through the village center, going through every subdivision with lights and sirens and candy thrown about. And this is the mastermind of Kyle Stribe in Red Hook Village. So that it was a lovely event too. So I would say Northern Duchess really put it out there this year.
You do have to laugh a little about Rhinebeck, though, because we went from having no holiday to having an overabundance. We should threaten to cancel the holiday every year because then it comes back even bigger and even better. So I want to give two shout outs. Shout out number one to us. If you want to learn about even more of holiday events going on, you should go to our events calendar at thedailycatch.org, which is very thorough. And I have to give a little shout out to a little tree. I live in Mullin, and when I drive into Rhinebeck Village, I go in on 308. And as you're driving in on 308, you pass the mobile station. And the mobile station has this little tiny tree. It's there all year, right by the gas tanks. And during the holidays, they put lights on it. And hand on heart, it is just the most charming little tree. It's a little Charlie Brown tree. But every time I drive by, it just puts a little smile on my face. It's not necessarily the most beautiful tree, but it just sits there. And as you're driving it into the village, it's just charming. I just love it. So
fun to see when you're touched, Walter. You're just the smile on your face.
And then one more shout out, of course, the Wonderland of Lights continues to take place at the fairgrounds. So if you haven't gone to see that, please go. This concludes our episode of The Catch Up. If you like our show, please be sure to subscribe or follow on your favorite platform, and you'll be notified every time we drop a new episode. Thank you to Matty Rosenberg and Jen Hammoud at Radio Free Rhinecilff for their help producing today's show. And thank you to Esther Martell for her help with editing the show. Emily, I always enjoy catching up with you.
You too, Walter. Happy holidays. We'll be back next week.